I'm Jake. In this video, we're going to continue with our Making a Website video series, where so far we have made this awesome website where it is hosted with Flask. We have a home page, an about page that doesn't do anything yet, a login page, a register page, and when you log in and register, you actually have a dashboard. So let me show you that right now. If we do Jake, test 1, 2, 3, to register a new user, then we go ahead and log in, Jake, test 1, 2, 3, and log in. We have logged in, it says it's successful, and now we have a dashboard page, and there's a log out button. So if we go to the dashboard page, we just see super secret stuff, and welcome Jake. So this dashboard is specific to my user, but there's nothing really here. So let's make it so that our user can actually add stuff to the dashboard. We're gonna add a text box here and a button, and then when the user puts some stuff in the text box and saves it, then this dashboard will start showing whatever they had saved previously. So you can kind of, like a little simple notepad or something. We're not adding a delete button yet, but we could add that too. So let's get to it. So as always, if you want to follow along, you can go ahead and find the code for this just in the link in the description to the GitHub repo, or if you have been following along so far, I'm going to try and go through each of the steps or each of the chunks of code that we're adding here in order to make this work. The first thing that I have changed is I've removed the header name that was within this render template for user from the register function. If you're just joining us now and you haven't been following us previously, you don't need to worry about it too much. Just go grab the code. Awesome. All right, so in order to do this, we want to make a couple of changes. The first change is we want to make it so that the user can actually see some information within the dashboard, right? So we're going to need to update the dashboard, but we actually need to get that information from somewhere. So we need to store that information somewhere. So in order to do that, we're going to need to create a new table. So we're going to add that table within the app.py. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and within the initdb, we're going to add a new thing here and paste this in here. And previously within initdb, we're creating a table if it doesn't exist called users, where the ID is an integer and a primary key. This should mean that it's going to automatically increment, and then a username and a password. The username must be unique and the password just can't be null. Then we are now adding the ability to create another table if it doesn't exist called data, where the ID is another primary key. There's a user ID, which is the integer, which should map to a user ID here. And then there is a content, which is just a text, just kind of like a string. And then the foreign key, which is the user ID, which references from the users table, the ID. This means that we can easily map these two things together so that we know that the user ID here should match this ID from this table. So once we've done this and we go ahead and restart our server, it will actually add this other table to our users.db file. Awesome. So now we have this, but we don't really have any way of showing it yet, but that's okay. So we're going to just pretend that we actually did have a way to write to it for now. And we're going to do the reading first, which means we're going to update our dashboard function to read from this table and then display it within the UI. Let's do that right now. So right now our dashboard function is very simple. It just returns the dashboard.html, which is this right here, which just says, welcome to the user. That's okay, but we need to add some more information. So in order to do that, we're going to just go ahead and paste all of this in here. So all we're doing here is we're going to create a new connection to the users DB. I guess users DB maybe is not a great name for this because we're actually storing other stuff here, but whatever, that's fine. We're then going to get a cursor, and then we're going to execute this select content. So the content of, well, content being this text. And we're going to select the content from the data table where the user ID is equal to the current user.id. Now, we know that the current user exists because the login is required for the dashboard, just as a reminder. So this should always exist. If it doesn't exist and it's null, then we're not going to get anything anyways. So that's fine. Then we're going to say cursor.fetchAll. This is then going to get a list of all of the user data or all of the content in an array from the data table. Then we're we're going to close our connection and render our dashboard template passing in user data. Sweet. So we're actually done for now in order to show it within the dashboard, but we actually need to update the dashboard HTML. So let's do that. All right, in order to show this, we're going to simply add in this here. And here we're having a header 3 that says your data, and then we're adding in a UL, which is an unordered list. Basically, it's just going to make little bullet points. If it was an OL instead, it would be an ordered list, which means each of these little list items, which are LIs, would be a 1, 2, 3, etc. Then what we're doing here is for the data in user data, which again we're passing from here, it's going to get each piece of that data and it is going to get the first element. So when I said that it just actually has a list, technically it's returning a two-dimensional list. So what that means is kind of like a spreadsheet, you can think of it. So each row individually is what we're getting here for data, and we want the first value, which is only the only value because we're only getting the content. So this is going to list everything there. So if we go ahead and save this, and we go back to our page and we refresh, you can see that we now see your data. But there's nothing there because we don't have any data yet. So let's add a form to this page that will allow us to add some data. All right, so I'm going to paste in some more code right here. And this is now a new form we're adding. So this form, when it's clicked, it's going to make a post request with the form data to the add data action. And we'll build that action in just a second. For this form, we have a label for the content that is just called add new data. Then we have a break, which is like a break line. And then we have a text area. So this is like a text box where it has the ID and the name of content. And then within here, we have 4 rows and 50 columns. It's kind of just defining the size. You can do it with width and height and stuff like that if you want through CSS as well. Then we're saying that this is a required field. So you couldn't submit this form without having something within this text area. And then we have 2 break lines and then an input of type submit, which means that when you click this input, which is just a button, it will go ahead and submit this form. And it is called add data. Pretty simple. All right, so one thing that I actually just noticed, which was a bit of a mistake on my part, was that when we are passing this user data here, it might not actually pass correctly. The reason for this is because when we were calling render template for user, it was just a function, and we didn't have anything referencing kwargs. So it was effectively this. And the reason this is an issue is because now when we call render template, we're not actually passing user data. So in order to fix that, I just had to add in this here, which kwargs is effectively the list or the set of arguments, specifically named arguments that are passed to a function, and you can pass them to another function just using kwargs like this. We probably should also do this here. Now this means that when we call render template for user, we are also passing in whatever extra stuff we add when we call this. So that was one issue I just kind of encountered. I don't know why it seemed to work before. Weird stuff happens sometimes. But anyways, if we go and see our page now, and we go to the dashboard, now we see this add new data, which with this awesome text box. So right now, this won't do anything. If we do test, or not test, it says URL not found because we're trying to post to this add data. So let's add an add data endpoint. All right, so I'm just gonna paste this in, then we'll go over what each thing we're doing. So first off, we have a new route for add data, and it's a post request that we're allowing. And we only allow this to happen if the user is logged in. If you want to know more about the user sessions, you can check out this video right up here where I go over how we kind of set that up. So yeah. So what we're then going to do is we're going to get the content from the request form, which is the content, because that's what we named it right here. And then once we get that content, we're then going to connect to our users DB, and we're going to insert that, and we're going to insert into the data table the user ID and the content. So we're going to get the user ID from the current user ID, and then the content from the content that was passed. And again, the current user ID will exist because login is required for this. Then we're going to commit this execution. Then we're going to close. We're going to flash that data has been added successfully, and we're going to redirect from this endpoint to the URL for the dashboard, which is going back to this, which means that when we do this post, it's going to effectively look like to the user like the dashboard has just refreshed, because it's going to come here, insert the stuff extremely fast, and then immediately redirect to the dashboard where the user will then see whatever they have just added. So one thing we're going to actually want to do is make sure that we have the flash stuff within here, which I don't think we do yet. So let's go ahead and add that. The reason we want to do that is because we want to make sure that if we have messages that we're flashing to the user, that they're kind of shown as soon as they can be shown. Because if you don't, well, it's just, you don't want it to show up later when it's not really relevant anymore. All right, so now with all of this added, we can go ahead and do test here. And then when we click add data, it will make the post request, and ta-da, we now have your data test. And it says data added successfully. So if we refresh this, we can see that your data is there. And if we go ahead and log out, and let's create a new user called Sammy, and we'll just do test123, and log in with Sammy. Probably should automatically log them in. I feel like that would be nice. Maybe we'll add that at some point. When we go to the dashboard, we can see Sammy has their own data, right? We can say, I really think Jake is the best. Wow, Sammy, why would you? You don't have to say that. But now this is Sammy's data. And if I log back into mine and I go to my dashboard, I can see my data. So we can see there's now user-specific data that only they can see within their own dashboard. So if anybody wants to, by the way, if you want me to implement something where we can delete this data or maybe store more complicated data, drop a comment down below, and yeah, I'd be open to maybe making a video about that. So that's all for this video. We have now allowed a user to not only have this awesome dashboard, but also add some data to that dashboard that we persist between sessions and have that data be unique to that user. So we're going to continue making this series. Eventually, we're going to actually have this website hosted somewhere, or at least I'm going to show you how to host it somewhere. I can't, again, promise that hosting will be free because I haven't found great places to host Python servers for free. Unfortunately, Heroku no longer has a free tier. So worst case scenario, it might cost a few bucks a month. But if you know of one, please let me know in the comments down below. I know this has been a lot of web stuff that we've been doing, and we're going to continue doing it over the next few weeks. But if you are interested in other things, like maybe machine learning, maybe check this video out right here. It's kind of the first machine learning video that I've made. And we're going to kind of dig further into that after some of these web videos. So yeah, maybe subscribe for that. Anyways, have a great day. Bye.